Can you please put your hands together for Sarah Cosgriff?
When I was 16, I crashed a plane. And you might have a lot of questions right now, I appreciate. First of all, yes, you are allowed to laugh, it's absolutely fine. Second of all, what a real plane, an actual real plane. Yes, an actual real plane. And finally, you might be thinking, why was a 16-year-old in charge of an actual real plane? And the short answer is the RAF, I guess. Let me explain. So this is me at 16 years old. I know, right? So this is me at 16 years old. If anybody did Air Cadets, Army Cadets, Navy Cadets in school, I did something called Combined Cadet Force in my school, and I was in the RAF section. And I actually joined this when I was 13 years old. So I have been flying planes, or at this point, since I was 13. But when you're 13, you do very basic things, like you roll left, you roll right, you pitch up, you go down, that kind of stuff. But when you're 16, you can have the opportunity to go on a gliding course for a week through a gliding scholarship, and this is what I did. And this is the Vigilant. This is the glider that I flew. Now, there's different types of gliders you can get. The one that you might think of is the winch glider. So this is when you get pulled up by a winch really, really quickly, and then you unhook the winch and you glide about. In the case of a Vigilant, however, you have an engine that basically you take off, you pull the throttle back, and then you glide about a bit. But you might cheat and then put that throttle back on, and then maybe pull it back. So this meant that in order to fly one of these, I needed to learn how to do takeoffs. And I did this about midway through the course. And I remember this. So I remember looking down the grass one way. I was sitting on the left. My instructor, Rob, was to the right of me. So I'm in control at this point. I have the control column with my right hand, and with my left hand, I was pushing down on the throttle, which is this big metal lever with my left hand. And we started going down the runway. I don't really remember a lot of what happened next, because everything just happened so quickly. I just don't think I had a chance to register it, to be honest. But what I do remember is at some point, my instructor says, "I have control," which usually it's a lot more calmer. It's like, I have control, you have control. So, that's the way we pass the control between each other. But this sounded very urgent. So I needed to take my hands off the control. The next thing I remember is a massive bang on the ground. And we were back on the ground, and there was just silence. And I remember turning to him, he was on my right, and I will never forget the look of shock on Rob's face. Looked so shocked. And I felt like I was in trouble. I felt like I had done something wrong. I, as I said, don't remember a lot of what happened. But my instructor did. But the other thing is that he loved drawing cartoons. And so very handily, I have a cartoon of what happened. So I remember the first bit. Yep, things are going well. Things are going really well so far. I remember the second bit, which is when we could tell something's wrong. I don't remember the next bit, however, and this is what happened. Essentially, we had done a cartwheel down the runway. So to explain what happened, the plane was stalling at about 50 feet from the ground. Now, if you stall, let's say, a couple thousand feet, you can recover from that. And you do have times when you do stall drills, or actually aerobatics where you do have stalls in them. But when you're 50 feet off the ground, there's not a lot of room to recover. But the other thing the aircraft does is that the right wing tends to dip when it stalls, which is why it catches on the ground, as you can see there. This is probably what caused it to nosedive smack into the ground. And then the final bit, which is the other bit I remember, is just being on the ground and getting out. Yeah. I think Rob could tell I was a little bit scared by what happened. So if you're skeptical and thinking, nah, this didn't really happen, I have evidence by photos. So this is what the plane looked like after we had crawled out of it. So it doesn't look like awful. You got a wheel bent in, you can see the propeller's broken. What you can't see is that the main spar that goes right through the wing has been damaged, and that's actually quite important for wing structure. And I think the engine got damaged in the process as well. The cost of the repairs for this aircraft was more than the aircraft is worth itself. So originally, when you get this aircraft, it cost £70,000. And the cost of the repairs was over this. So I cost the RAF thousands of pounds, basically. But the reason why behind this is because they stopped producing the aircraft in the 90s, and so any repairs had to be bespoke. But the other thing I cost them was an instructor, because there had to be an investigation, an official one, that would take a few months. He wasn't able to instruct until that investigation was completed. Now, he had done nothing wrong, he did all the right things, and he was allowed to fly again in a few months. Here's another photo away from the aircraft, so you can see the lines on the grass. And okay, if you want a final bit of evidence, if you still don't believe me, you see that prop in the photo? I have it here with me tonight, which I think is going to be very handily handed to me by, oh, it's coming, here it is. Thank you so much. Here is this bit of propeller, which I've owned for almost 20 years. Now, I'm not actually meant to have this. But what happened is that my instructor gave it to me. But the reason why I wasn't meant to have it is this is technically evidence for the crash investigation. But basically, it got given to me, and there was nothing else I can do, so I kept it. And I've had it for this long. So that is what happened. But let's actually talk about the stall itself. What is stalling? Well, to talk about stalling, we need to talk about lift, which is one of the forces that happens in flight. So we have low pressure that goes over the top and high pressure at the bottom. And that is because you have fast-moving air over the top that creates an area of low pressure, and slower-moving air in comparison, which you have the area of high pressure. This difference in pressure is what generates lift. And that difference in air, so air going over the wing in that speed, that's because of the shape of the wing itself. But in stalling, this is what happens. You tend to get this turbulent airflow. So you're not getting that lovely, smooth, quick, fast-moving air over the top of the wing. You're getting this instead, and so you lose lift. But the reason why this happens is because of looking at the increase in the angle of attack. So this is actually taken from a book I would have used as a cadet about learning how to fly. And you've got something called the chord line that goes through the wing, and they have the relative airflow, and the angle between these two, when it's 15 and above, this is when you tend to stall. So that is how I crashed the plane. But that is not where the story ends. There's more. I had to tell my parents that I crashed a plane. So I rang them the evening, and my parents at this point are on holiday in Italy, having a very lovely dinner when my mum gets a call. Now, bear in mind, this is 2005. Calls abroad's quite expensive, so they were definitely not expecting a call from me. My mum picks up. I tell her I crashed a plane. She didn't know what to say. She passed the phone to my dad. And we had a conversation, and I said, well, actually, they want me to continue the course tomorrow. And basically, he saw it as, well, if the RAF seem fine with it, then okay, you can carry on, and we'll enjoy the rest of our holiday. Next day, new instructor, new aircraft. I'm a bit dubious because I'm thinking, did you not see what I did the day before? And the fact that my instructor was grounded, but I'm not, and I'm very confused by this. But we were practicing takeoffs again. And I went through the lesson, we did some takeoffs, and I remember saying I felt about 90% of the way there, and I felt a lot more confident. And I ended up finishing the course. So here's me being awarded my wings by the commanding officer at the time of this gliding school. Basically, I got to do something called a go solo. Usually with a solo, you need absolutely perfect weather day for your very first solo. And a solo involves you doing a circuit of the airfield. In this case, the weather wasn't perfect, so some of us were having ghost solos instead. So this is when somebody sits with you in the cockpit and they just don't do anything and you do a solo. I also got an unofficial award. Anybody who's done any kind of camps or cadet things, this is the one I got, the most expensive gliding scholarship award, which I'm very proud of. So yeah, but the story still doesn't end there. So if I fast forward to when I'm 19 years old, I'm at university, I'm in the University Air Squadron. I got to fly one of these. This is a Grob Tutor. And I got to do, we had a perfect weather day, and I got to do a solo in one of these at 800 feet around the airfield. And it's not a very long flight, but it's an amazing flight to have. And I think about those adults who put me back in a plane really quickly. So the whole falling off a horse and getting back on it again, and just how important it was for that, because I wouldn't be able to do this years later. And I'm really, really thankful for that, to be honest. The story still doesn't end there. 2016, I'm living in Derby. The local TEDx said, "Hey, would you like to do a talk for us?" And I said, "Yes. I've got this story that might fit your theme. What do you think?" And they said, "Yeah, absolutely, it sounds amazing." But the problem is, there's so much I'd forgotten, things I just couldn't remember from the incident itself. So I thought, maybe I should email Rob, the gliding instructor. And I found an email, and bearing in mind, I haven't talked to him in 11 years. And I didn't know if he would want to hear from me. I didn't know if he still uses email anymore. And I've got a couple of extracts from that email here for you. Here it is. "I was one of the cadets that you taught, and I was the very cadet that caused you to be grounded that summer. I hope you remember me, but I have a feeling I will be remembered for the wrong reason." Then I signed it off with, "Best wishes from possibly your worst student." He replied in a day, and he was very enthusiastic, told me about what his life was like right now, and in our email exchange, he said, "Can I come see your talk?" And I said, "Yeah." So he came to see it. So this is us when I was 16 on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, that is from 2016 to 11 years later. And I actually told him about this event tonight. So I'm actually going to speak to the camera, to the people at home, because if Rob, hello, if you're watching this, I hope you enjoyed the show so far. Can you believe I have been milking the hell out of this story for almost 20 years? I brought it to the Royal Institution, to the Faraday Theatre, and I hope you're proud of me. So, as you probably, just in case you haven't guessed, first of all, that is the story of how I crashed a plane. In case you haven't guessed, it's not an experience I would recommend, but it makes a pretty good story. Thank you so much.
Sarah Cosgriff, everybody!